guys, welcome to the Good Shepards Podcast, Off the Leash. I'm Isabella Shepard.
I'm Stacy Shepard. Glad to be here for episode 2.
Yeah, and we kind of have leveled up. We have mics now, so hopefully the audio is a lot better. This is our second podcast, so bear with us. We're still getting used to things and getting into the talking mode because we used to yapping without cameras on us.
Trying to not talk over each other.
Yeah.
Trying to not finish each other's sentences. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I know last time we kind of talked about, or you talked about, where you were coming from in starting the business, kind of your feelings around it, your perspective. And I also have a perspective and a reasoning behind encouraging you to start the business. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think that I think about a lot when I see you day to day, we're running this thing, it's growing, it's changing, mm-hmm. We're learning as we go, we're trying and failing, which I think we're getting pretty good at, trying and failing and
less failing.
Gears. Yes,
hopefully.
Failing as in no dogs were harmed in the failing. It's just ourselves, kind of internally. Doing too much. But what I wanted to say was that watching you growing up, getting to know you, always had this love for animals, struggling with your learning challenges, which as a parent is very difficult. Our instinct is to fix it. Mm-hmm. So I did spend some years, as you remember well.
Yeah.
Sending you to a special school, doing, all these extra exercises and timing your reading and counting your mistakes and trying to talk to experts on how to fix it, as opposed to embracing it and going with it and coming up with tools for us to handle it, navigate it better.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with what I can see as even the education system or even society embracing learning differences, as opposed to when you were 10 years old, 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. The philosophies I feel like were different, where there was more shame around learning challenges or not, being awesome at the exact academic structure that you were subjected to.
Yeah.
As a kid. So as a parent, you feel can feel very unsuccessful, mm-hmm. and especially since you were the oldest. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make you the example, which is an unfair thing to do. But I was also the oldest in my family, so I felt that maybe that pressure, or I projected that onto you. So fast forward, you played sports. Always a great kid, always a team player. Very few discipline problems. Honestly, you were a very sweet baby, very nice child, which is why I kept having more kids. Mm. You kind of tricked me into thinking that I was doing this great parenting job, as opposed to you were just a very easy child to parent. But as you were coming out of high school and really nervous about going to college, not enjoying college, I could see, but for lack of, what else are you going to do? You're going to go to high school and then you go to college.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. Again, being the oldest, just in general of especially being like a senior, everyone's like, ooh, what college are you going to? What college are you going to? Over and over. And I obviously I wanted to go to college, but around that time, I slowly started having a lot of depression and stuff. So it kind of, I was excited at first, and then I slowly started to just kind of go curl up into a ball and stuff like that. And then, and I just didn't really enjoy it.
I think it's important to note that, you weren't enjoying it. You were struggling coming out of high school.
Well, I also, because I had learning challenges, I've never liked school because I've always had this bad feeling about it. I had dyslexia, and it was kind of severe. So I would take my tests outside the classroom. I would get extra time. I would, get amenities or, extra things because I had that and tested for it and stuff like that. But then that also made me like kind of like anytime we would take a test, I'd walk out of the room and people would be like, why are you walking out of the room? Like, I would kind of get like a little bit more attention, or I'd go to this special room or whatever. And people would kind of be like, what? And in high school, they didn't really care. They really more so cared in elementary school. Cause like any little thing, a little kid's going to kind of be like, what's that? And then, but yeah. And then, so going back to college, yeah, I just wasn't really that into it. I signed up for classes way too late. That summer I was just kind of partying a lot, not really paying attention. And then, and then we just kind of, just me, like, just kind of like started like not really liking anything because I was just really depressed and stuff like that. And then we just had like, our own family problems that happened.
But I think I think it's important to note, I want to go into why things were falling apart that summer between your high school and your college.
Yeah.
But before I do that, I want to bring up something that you just said that I actually think is really interesting because what you learned, sending you to that special school for second and third grade, the school for nothing but kids with learning challenges, ADHD, sociopathic kids. I mean, there was some really tough cases at that school.
It wasn't really that fun of school.
Yeah, it was that was a very interesting time.
Yeah.
But I was trying to fix you, and that I thought was the solution.
Yeah.
It's basically spending your college money on this school, which I know has really helped a lot of other kids. I think it was overkill for you.
It helped a little bit, but
that's what I'm getting to. That the biggest thing that you got out of going to that school for 2 years was an unrealistic environment, and so that's why I pulled you out after the 2 years. The biggest thing you got out of that is advocating for yourself. And raising your hand, when you went back to the regular public school, raising your hand and saying, this kid behind me is erasing too much and I can't hear anything the teacher's saying because I'm too busy concentrating on this kid with his eraser, or I'm not having a good day, or you even with the little girl, your super good friend who was hearing impaired, how you were so overly focused on Lily and what Lily needed because you were avoiding what you needed to do because you were avoiding your own classwork. And so you were always going to check on Lily, but that you were also advocating for Lily. She didn't need you to advocate for her. Lily's killing in life right now.
Yeah.
Shout out, Lily. But I want to bring that up to the dog business because you're so mindful and so intentional about and telling your dog parents you must advocate for your dog. Like, it's so important to you above the obedience of it or exactly what's happening in the home, the jumping up, the crate work, the place work, all the different things that you're actually teaching to these families. When I hear you talk, when I go to your evaluations or I hear you on the phone, you're always talking about advocacy. And I can see now, I'm having this aha moment that is where it started, that you learned to advocate for yourself. And I think that we as a family, now in real life situations, need to get better at that for ourselves, because I can honestly say that I don't do that. I don't stick up for myself a lot. I just take it for the team, which goes back to now what you're saying about that crash. So we're a nice family, Shepard, party of 6, your table is ready, right?
Yeah, very like
very Orange County,
cookie cutter,
very
kinda.
nicey nice.
Yeah,
going to
just
Disneyland,
normal family.
Disney passes, going to the beach, all that, nice house and cars, all that good stuff. And then we get to, your senior year, things are getting really shaky. And so you're feeling it. You're internalizing it. And again, looking back on it now, after all this therapy that we've all had, looking back to the build up to that crash where your dad went to rehab.
Yeah.
And the things leading up to that, and all the ugly things that we discovered about our lives while he was there, while he was in rehab.
Yeah.
And the way I fell apart and I started leaning on you probably a little bit too much, and which obviously affected you. This is the summer after your senior year when you'd gone through your own breakup, right?
Yeah. That's the thing I was gonna say is I didn't say that is that it was my first like high school love, first love, and I took it really, really hard because it was a really hard relationship. And first love, you think your world's ending afterwards. And so it also wasn't a normal teenage relationship. I don't really want to say anything about him, but it was just really difficult of like real life things that I had to handle within the relationship of it not just being like we go to the movies and we hold hands. Like it was a lot different than that.
Isn't that so interesting how you chose such a difficult relationship?
Yeah.
You chose a relationship that with so much pain already built into it.
A lot of saving.
So much challenge, so much saving.
Already.
Yeah, so much saving.
Yeah.
Well, but so did I.
Yeah.
I mean, my relationship for 20 years was so much work. I thought this must be relationships.
Yeah.
Right? And how having to work so hard in your relationship and in my relationship, what a gift, because guess what? We know how to work.
Yeah.
So we do work.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, relationship, personal, friendship, work, family, whatever it is, we just work.
Yeah.
We get up and we try it again. And that didn't work. So let's try something else. No matter what it is. And again, as a parent, I could spend time feeling, and I did spend time feeling so guilty that I showed you a difficult relationship. And so you chose a couple of difficult relationships, not just that one.
Yeah.
And you acknowledging, or you telling me, well, I think I'm probably continuing to choose this because this is what I've seen. You saw me working.
Yeah, difficult relationship. I think people don't know what that. Can you elaborate? What do you mean? How was it difficult? Because no one.
Well, my relationship was difficult because I accidentally married alcoholism.
Yeah,
I married
an alcoholic
into a situation that I was never qualified to handle alone. Still tried to handle it alone because I was raised in watching an ideal relationship. I mean, no relationship's ideal, but my perspective of it as a child was, this is so beautiful and perfect. And, my dad worshiped my mom, treated her like a princess. And I just made huge assumptions that you get into a relationship and everybody automatically knows to choose each other every day, to be a team, to prioritize for each other, to choose loyalty.
Do you think you were maybe a little too optimistic?
Yes, I was super sheltered.
Okay, I was gonna say you didn't know that like people can do wrong, and because you've seen growing up a perfect knight in shining armor.
I didn't understand a world where good people can do terrible things to the people that are closest to them. And even still to this day, I struggle watching human nature a lot.
That's weird because I also struggle with that.
It surprises me.
I'm very naive. I think I believe someone right away and then they prove me wrong, and I'm not watching out for the signs, and then it's like they did me super wrong. I'm like, whoa, But then I realized I'm like, oh, okay, I was being super naive. I was like hoping the absolute, like my absolute best. But going back to that story, because I feel like we keep going on tangents, is yeah, so my dad went to rehab, and then as he was in rehab, again, I was starting college. I remember like, yeah, I was like in college or starting college, and then we slowly found out more things while he was gone, financially, that because my dad always controlled all the money and stuff like that, and you had no idea about any financial problems until you started looking at the bills and stuff like that, and slowly realized, like, you know, we were almost,
This is bad.
yeah, like we're like, you know, because of the alcohol and other things, is the money was just being spent over, you know, I don't know how long does it go back to the crazy amount of
Years.
spending.
Yeah.
It just like slowly like built up.
Just a lot of years, and I could only look into it to a certain point because it was so terrifying. That, and again, living so long for 20 years, and again, I can see now because of the therapy I've had, I can put words and terms to what I was doing, and I was living in fight or flight. I was living in survival mode for 20 years. So even when everything crashed and I could see that there's no one driving the boat, we're just going in circles, that we were, you know, kind of without a leader, my first instinct is always to come up with a solution. Just go straight into solutions mode and then freak out about it later.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the luxury of staying down on the tile screaming or screaming into a pillow for too long, because I was alone in the house for the first time with 4 broken teenagers. And teenagers are already rough.
Yeah, because I was 18. Antonio was 17?
You were 18, 16, 14, and Freshie was 11.
Okay, yeah.
But basically teenagers.
Yeah, and so, because people don't know, like, how financially down bad it was like that month we weren't going to be able to pay the mortgage.
Right, we couldn't make our house payment.
And, like, a obscene amount of money was spent, and I think most of it was Antonio's college and stuff like that. Like college fund. There was a lot of like college fund, or just any.
It was
like,
coming,
just
yeah.
keeping,
It was pulled from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Basically, zero is zero. But again, without, we can keep skipping back and forth from the depths, the pits of hell to kind of where we are, where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
But I can see now, without even those financial challenges, we wouldn't have the work ethic we do. We wouldn't be always, trying to be more responsible with money, be more, do things more cost effectively. I think there's a healthy amount of worry or concern, maybe worry is not the right word. There's a healthy amount of concern when you are living your life, starting a business, trying to figure things out, making investments, figuring out, those types of details for your life. And I think that challenging time kind of reset all of us to where hopefully none of us feel 100% comfortable in our current financial state, which I honestly think is healthy. I mean, you need to be mindful about what you're spending and why you're spending it, and how much your time is worth. You know, those are such important lessons for everybody, and no matter what age or what situation.
Yeah, you learned a lot really fast because you had no choice, and then you've kind of taught me as well of what to do financially, and everyone in our family being set to just be more educated, because the thing is we trusted a person like wholeheartedly with all the financials, and it was I guess.
But it's also really interesting And you know, and it was a trustworthy plan for a while.
Yeah.
And then the disease kind of took over.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, everything was, you know, kind of, going downhill. You know, it wasn't all overnight, all at once. It was kind of deteriorating over time. But what I also want to say is that I think is an important point, and I think that people would be interested to think of their own lives and themselves as we were alone in the house, and I was learning about finances, learning about, you know, going into the bank statements and figuring out how to be an adult for the first time, because I went from living in my parents' house to living in my husband's house and nothing in between. So I went from being somebody's child to somebody's wife. And in the Latin culture at that time, being somebody's wife was being subservient. You just go along. Well, you're going to handle the money. I trust you. Of course, that's relationships,
Really,
right? That's marriage.
traditional.
But everything fell apart. Skip forward 20 years, everything fell apart. And I had to learn really quickly how to save all of us, including your dad.
Yeah.
Financially, emotionally, with addiction and a lot of other things, legally. Could have had some very serious legal issues. He was only gone for 30 days.
Yeah.
In those 30 days, our family, all 6 of us, completely transformed our relationships to each other. And even you guys at those ages. So I want to make that point, because I think that people get stuck in their lives and they don't think that they can create real change except over long periods of time, or they don't know where to start, or they feel like the mountain is too high, the road is too long, and it just seems way out there. But it's not. People can create absolutely no change. 5 years goes by and everything's the same. The routine's the same. Or something can pop or crash or reveal itself, and you can use that as a jumping off point, because there are reasons for things. The reasons why, you know, we found ourselves in some very difficult situations. But then there are also, those reasons should not be excuses for why we don't change and grow and learn and succeed and do better. Because I told you, we sat down, we had all our meetings, right? It was me and my family meetings, which I still enjoy having, by the way.
Yeah.
I love a good family meeting with snacks. I remember starting to sit you guys down and have these series of talks with you and telling the boys, this is not going to be your reason to have rage issues or for you to be disrespectful to women. And then I told you, girls, guess what? You got daddy issues, but that's also not going to be a reason for you to disrespect yourself, for you to use your body as a, you know, as a way of getting attention. Can I just say it that way? Because we're not being vulgar in this podcast. My gosh. That'll come later. Episode 4. But, you know, there are reasons for things. And if the worst thing that happens to you in your life is that, you know, this difficult episode where you were raised in addiction, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You
have to be.
You could really rise above it, learn a lot, and what a great opportunity for you to do better. Stop the cycle.
Well, you got to be aware of what you've been through, but you can't use that as a crutch. You know, just even like going back to what you're saying about, you know, like what you know in the Latin culture. There's just. You got to have to make a difference and kind of like go back in whatever way it is, you know, meditating, creating a healthier lifestyle, whatever it is to, what I did is I used it to motivate me. And for a long time, at least a couple of years, was just like fixated on so much of like the negative and I guess the biggest thing, it's all about perspective. The perspective I had in the beginning was like, okay, like I'm I have this insane fear because I'm half of this person, to be like this person. And then I have this intense fear of like, okay, well, what if I pick the wrong person, stuff like that. And then through,
Which
therapy,
you have done.
Yeah, which I have done. And even in that relationship was insanely, I mean, I don't want to say I'm happy that happened, but it's kind of like so eye-opening once I looked on the outside once it was over.
I'm happy
like,
it happened.
Well, yeah, because it was.
I'm thankful. Thankful.
Yeah, it was exactly what I saw growing up. Because even though I guess like because I've seen it the longest because I'm the oldest, so and I also was like kind of again grew up pretty fast, so would see dad doing certain things where I'm like, I'm not sure if he's sober or not, stuff like that. And especially like, okay, like you need to go like help your siblings, and then dad's drunk, so then I need to kind of like make sure like I'm being the reasonable one, and being the parent in the house or whatever it is. But pretty much, yeah. So you kind of sat us all down and kind of had a talk of like, this is what's happening. This is what we need to do. And everyone kind of like in our own way, we kind of just became like our own team, which we were before. But I think it was just more so like, everyone needs to more so pitch in and, make sure we're aware and we're, talking about what we're going through. And I think just take it day by day. And then you kind of helped fix the financial situation by, changing all the finances and stuff like that.
It turns out I'm amazing with money.
Yeah.
And I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had thought that, again, my perspective on the the difference between men and women, or that old-fashioned power dynamic in marriages, which I really, or just relationships in general, I really feel like I can see your generation and how that's changed, and how people are actually now looking for partners, or at least they should be. They're looking for equals, as opposed to the men being in charge, or if the woman is the breadwinner in my generation, that does raise eyebrows. Like, she makes more than he does, or whatever
now
the situation
it's more equal 50-50, and it's like those kind of traditions aren't really followed anymore. It's also like you can't even financially, unless the one of the partners makes a gajillion dollars, really be able to do that nowadays. I mean, living in California, everything's very expensive. I mean, that's the way that I see it, is like that. But then also like through what happened with us is that I grew a big amount of independence, and once I changed my perspective of like it's almost like I was like, oh, okay, like I'm not because I've had this really bad experience and things going on with my dad. I felt like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. But instead I changed, I think, I don't even know what it was, but I changed my perspective of like, no, I have to do this. I have to be better. I have to work on myself. I have to catch myself. And like ever since then, I was just very aware of like how I'm treating people, how I am even with my own like alcoholism, runs in the family. His dad was an alcoholic, if me even with substances in general. Because
so are you talking about what kind of spurred you on kind of this upward, this
the
upward
realization
path?
Yeah.
Right. So I know what it was.
Yeah.
So I think that you tried school.
Yeah.
Didn't work. Yeah. No problem. I hope that you never felt like, I know you put a lot of judgment on yourself, that you hated school, and that you felt like you were like the dumbest one in the family of the kids, right? But then you found this job with the dogs. Yeah. You had a couple other jobs, but this job with the dogs was so healing for you, and eye-opening, and felt so correct to you. That's what I saw. And I saw you getting better faster than the rest of us. You know, I was still in survival mode. You know, this is a few months after the crash.
Yeah.
Because we live our lives before before rehab and after rehab.
Yeah.
All of us. All six of us do.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like that's what my therapist said is like, this is like the one moment that was like life altering that like changed the way you are. And I'm like, yeah, because I was telling her and I was like before and after, and she's like, the way you talk about like kind of just through when we were talking of like, oh, how did you feel this way before? How did you feel this way after?
Yeah.
And it's like a whole different thing.
That was a line of demarcation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had many aha moments through that and also watching you, but you know, in terms of here we are in this place running the successful business and giving back through this nonprofit and using the gifts that we've gotten from the dogs to do it. That's what I saw is you with that job working for somebody else, learning about the dogs, loving the dogs, learning how to be a trainer, making connections with your coworkers, with the dogs, the owners of the dogs, and watching your boss and seeing what kind of boss not to be, honestly, in a lot of ways.
That was part of it, but I don't want to say that I definitely didn't just go work at a doggy daycare boarding place, dog facility, and everything went away. Like, because I was during that time, like I was still having anxiety attacks. I was still having major anxiety. There was times because I obviously lived in Yorba Linda, and I would drive all the way to Newport, so it'd be like an hour drive of traffic, because it was during traffic time there and back, and then I'd be driving all day. So it was a lot of driving, and then that was usually when it was the worst for me, where I'd feel really numb. I would like kind of like have a panic attack, and even like before even going to work, I would like wake up with insane amount of anxiety. And I had this one manager that I would text, and I kind of became close with her because I had to tell somebody, because there would be times I literally couldn't drive because my hands are numb, or I literally couldn't drive because I can't breathe.
Which I would have never respected until I had a panic attack.
Yeah.
And before that, I thought everybody who's having a panic attack is so dramatic.
Yeah.
And then also seeing you have a panic attack, remember it was in your room.
Yeah.
And you said you could feel it coming. And I remember, I'm going to try not to cry right now. I remember you trying so hard not to do that. Yeah. So hard not to have a panic attack. I could tell you were trying to shake it off. And I remember laying on top of you just for the weight. Because I can't remember saying, what can I do? And you said, just lay on top of me. Because you're shaking so hard that you felt like you were going to come apart.
Yeah.
And I remember that's how I knew I was having a panic attack. Because I felt like I was in the car. Thank goodness I wasn't driving. Yeah. I remember looking out on where we were driving, kind of in the middle of nowhere. I remember thinking, I got to get out of this car because I'm shaking, like I'm going to come apart. So I need more space. Yeah. Yeah. It's just the weirdest feeling ever.
Yeah. So, and so I kind of had to like even before calling out, I sat down with my manager she was just super like motherly, understanding, like just a really, really good person. I just felt like I could be comfortable with her. And so I told her, like, I have really bad anxiety, depression. I'm really going through something. And I would text her and let her know, like, hey, like, and because the thing is even though I had that, well, obviously no one likes it, but I absolutely hated that it would hold me back, because I am a person that just wants to do their best, wants to be and do more, especially from what I was doing with my job, like working there, wanting to make sure, I'm getting everything done correctly. When I would make a mistake, I would focus and make sure I don't make that mistake again. Like, my productivity was always lessened from my anxiety, because I would want to go to work and I physically couldn't. I wouldn't. The thing is the biggest thing with anxiety is that you feel like you have no control, which is why when I had the first one you're talking about, I was like 17, or no, I was 18. And I was like freaking out because I had no control over it, and I hated that because I've never had that feeling before. So anyways, going back to this manager, I just would tell her like, hey, like I'm trying, and she was super understanding. And the thing is I already feel like crap because I'm calling out, because I have to leave early, or because I'm having a panic attack on the job. And I would tell her when I am there, like when I am there and I am working and I'm fine, she would come up and be like, "Yo, like you're doing such a good job," because I would do more and beyond, even though
You're trying to compensate.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just kind of really, because I was there for like 3 years. I was really getting good at it too, of like being on top of things. I'd be there, with by myself with like 15 dogs. I would just anyway, so she would encourage me that I am doing a good job, that she also encouraged me, to do training, because I kind of got like intrigued by it because she started doing training, stuff like that. And so she was one of the people besides you that motivated me, saying you can do, like, you're better than this, and so it just really motivated me to like keep going and stuff like that. So
two things that you just brought up that are super good.
yeah.
So first of all, okay, so we're talking about your anxiety, your depression, and the trauma that brought it all to the front of your life.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like you're already kind of had some of this, and then
yeah, it was a lot less when I was a kid, like just a tiny bit.
Well, because of your learning challenges,
Yeah.
like there was always kind of that shakiness, that self-doubt, right?
Yeah.
And then we have this crash where it all is going to come out. So one thing is the trauma, and how you just said the lack of control. So here you are working in this business with dogs, with animals, and the only time you felt okay was actually being outside on the street, in control of these 8 dogs, 10 dogs, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you have the control. You're the alpha in that situation, and that is where you found some control.
And the structure too, because the thing is that I liked is I'd show up, I'd have my own, you pick a van, you would have 3 walks, you would pick up all your dogs, do a walk, drop them off, pick them up, drop them off. So it was just like that schedule. And then also, like, when I'm driving my van, I don't have anyone like necessarily telling, like, I already knew what to do, I already have a schedule, and I could just be outside. I think that the other thing too is just being really physically active, being outside, walking the dogs, and then, going about my day and just feeling really independent, even though I was only, getting paid minimum wage. But
right. So then getting the point financially where you cannot afford to work for this other person for minimum wage anymore, right? You're spending all your money on gas. And also that feeling of routine and being in control, to create more of that. And the only way to elevate that and create more of that was what we said, which is to try to do it for yourself. So you knew what you were passionate about. You knew what was healing you. It felt correct to you. You were getting super good at it. You're finally finding success because you didn't find it in the classroom, and you did have it on the volleyball court until you got a bad coach who didn't appreciate you. So that went away. And that's a whole other, story that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
That disappointment of not being valued in that way, because that was your solace away from, I'm not successful in the classroom, I'm successful on the court.
Yeah, I needed to be.
Oh, I guess I'm not successful on the court because this coach, keeps on putting in, other people in front of me. Ridiculous. Anyways, as a parent, I could get into all that. But so that's what I'm saying is about your trauma created this need for more control. Where can you find it? Instead of finding it in unhealthy things, you found it with the dogs. And therefore, that was one of the catalysts to you getting just healthy enough, just confident enough, still not super confident, but just confident enough in your abilities with these dogs to break out on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. The second thing that I think is super important that I love, that I feel like is a very controversial attitude, is how you said hate. You hated not being in control. So I want to talk about hate, which insinuates rage, and rage over your challenges, your disability, your situation, your relationship, whatever it is, my rage over my relationship, and how that is such a motivator, can be a motivator, and is not necessarily a bad thing. If, like they call it, I was motivated to do this or that. I had a fire in my belly. You heard that expression?
Yeah.
I have a fire in my belly, which means that you're fired up about something. Well, what if that fire comes from just being fed up?
Yeah.
Just being pissed off and pissed enough to decide, you know what? Today's the day. Or you know what? You don't think I can? Well, watch this.
Yeah, because you can either kind of complain or like just be in a stuck space, or you can do something.
The rage can swallow you for sure.
Yeah, you could be like just,
it can have no direction. It can be like a fire where it's just kind of everywhere and it's getting out of hand. Or it can be, for me, I mean, so many times it's been a motivator. It's been it's here. It's not going to go anywhere today.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can harness this and let it propel me forward. Even if it's just for the day. Because I know that with the business, the intention of the business was a very simple concept. It started out, you said, I just want to walk some dogs. I don't want to market myself as a trainer. I don't want to do anything else.
I just want to be a pack walker.
I just want to walk some nice dogs in my neighborhood and feel like, feel successful. So I just think those are two really good points of wanting control, needing that control, knowing that you deserve it, and it's okay to get there. It's okay to be mad on the way.
Well, you have to, in order to change, you need to be uncomfortable. And when you change, either the idea of change is uncomfortable in itself, but uncomfortability creates growth. So,
but in my generation, being angry, and even now, doing what I do, and going to Bible studies and being in these different situations, these rooms full of women my age, you'll hear that, like, oh, you seem really angry. Sometimes, sure, but I'm really getting some cool stuff done. Yeah, and to deny that we feel this way sometimes, or to feel embarrassed about it, I just think is unfortunate. And I really wish that more people in general, but especially more women, would be more proud of their anger. And I'd rather have you be angry, seeing you angry over your situation, even angry at that panic attack. I could tell, like, was making you furious that you couldn't catch yourself. Yeah. I'd like to see that better than curling up in a ball on the floor. Yeah. I would rather see you pushing through it and letting it roll, right? Let it ride. Yeah. But because at least there's movement there. You're not stuck sitting or laying down. Oh, I can't get out of bed. Yeah. Because I know there's been, again, with the business, the other, business you worked for, the business that you started, plenty of times when you showed up, it was very obvious that you'd been crying all the way there. Yeah. But you still showed up. Yeah. And just made it work. So yeah, it's been very inspiring to watch, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, inspiring to watch you too, of like you going from like, having this difficult situation, I mean, always caring for all of us 4 kids. Like you were, I mean, obviously you were always like the one to look to, and like the head of the house, even before, the crash.
but even more so you stepping up and then us stepping up together as well, even with the business. In the beginning, you saw me wanting to do something, but not quite as confident, not quite as sure, still struggling with my mental health. And you kind of were like, hey, like, let's keep this going. And like motivating me and giving me, again, I always say like having at least one person in your corner saying you can do this.
That's a good point too. I think in my trauma,
Mm-hmm.
seeing your trauma and seeing, just like I said, you just getting just confident enough to try.
Yeah.
But so being able to recognize, because in my own pain and
Yeah.
my own issues, to recognize in someone else who I knew so well, like there's a window there.
Yeah.
And if I just give you just that little nudge, and like a lot of other parents are going to say, oh, well, she was 22 and we need to let kids figure it out on their own. And they need to come up with their own ideas. And you shouldn't be so overbearing. A lot of parents would say that was very pushy of me to kind of bug you about trying it.
Yeah.
But I know you.
Yeah.
And I saw where you came from. So I saw that little opening there. And then that's why it started with, how about just on the weekends? Or just the dogs, just a couple of dogs. Let's just do it that way. Like coaxing you into it.
You weren't like really parenting me. You were more just like being a friend, encouraging me. And that just kind of like reminded me, like, to go back really quick of like, with all my issues with my disabilities, anxiety, depression, whatever, I would always have at least one teacher that I really liked, that really loved me and saw me, like really like saw me of like, oh, I see her trying, whatever.
Just takes one.
Every year, elementary, middle school, high school, there would always be this like one teacher, this one person, that would see, because
or even that one coach
that
shout out Coach James Anderson, Coach Butters, we love you.
That would just be like, I see you, I see the work you're putting in, whatever. And whenever I had that one person, that's like, because I had so much going on and I so much self-doubt, so many other issues that in my head like would like make me really like be like, oh, I can't do this. I would have one person that would say you can, and it would push me and push me and push me. And so, even today, like, I have at least one or two people that are like, hey, like, that I can go back to and be like, am I doing this right? Am I okay? And they're like, yeah, you are. Like, and then I'm like, okay. And then I just keep going on. And then I think eventually I can, because I don't think I've 100% found that in myself, but I'm still slowly like getting more and more confidence of not needing, not that I need anyone, but you're
never going to be 100% there. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I've had a ton of therapy. I mean, I'm always trying to read and learn and trying to figure stuff out. And it's not a straight line forward. It's not just you're climbing, and you're going to get to the top of the mountain. I mean, there's so many detours along the way, and so many things, new situations can just derail us. I mean, and even in the business, there are things that have shaken our confidence and maybe made us a little nervous or caused us to just kind of pause and reevaluate. And I mean, that's what we need to be doing, and that's the path to to what's right and to where we really want to get to, and then to forgive ourselves for that, because I think that both of us are like that, which is may or may not be awesome, is that we think of something, a direction we want to go in, and okay, let's do it tomorrow. Like we just, I'm trying to talk a little bit more in longer term, like even now it's November, and just talking about, well, next year, like just trying to give ourselves a longer berth, like a longer runway of time to create positive change. That's professionally and personally, to just give ourselves that grace to understand that it's going to take as long as it's going to take. And as long as we know we have a place to go, because if you're not hungry for something, if you're not always striving and learning, then I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's really the point. Should be the human condition. And I think a lot of people that get to my age start talking about retiring and different things like that. I just can't think of anything more ridiculous than retiring and doing what?
Yeah.
I mean, how often can you do that hobby?
Well, I feel
or
like
that thing you like.
I mean, I don't really know, but I would assume that it's maybe a job that they either don't enjoy or they've just been doing in the meantime.
Right. Well, they've been living their lives wrong.
Yeah, they've been working to live and not
right.
Wait, working to live or living to work.
They've been living to work. That's
Yeah.
it. Living to work instead of working to live.
Yeah.
But it's neither of those things.
Mm-hmm.
When you find something you're passionate about and you have so many reasons to do it, you know, life and money and love and relationships and fun and adventure and doggies, then it's not even work in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's like, retire from what?
Yeah.
Retire from being a family, retire from, being awesome and doing this thing that we would do for free. This is what we do for free.
Yeah.
So, it's just a completely different, it's a work ethic that is a life choice.
Yeah.
That is just a worldview.
Yeah.
That was a great talk today. What did you think about that?
I think it was pretty good. I think we got pretty deep into it. It was a little heavier, but I mean, we just tell our stories just so we can have other people relate and just hear where we come from.
I only almost cried once.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
I enjoy talking to you. I'm glad we can kind of go through a lot of this stuff. I think this could, help us get closer, help any other people that are listening.
Yeah.
Talk more to your grown children.
Yeah.
And, join us next time. Thanks for spending this time with us, and take care, everybody. Bye.